Hey patrons, Gaijin Kumba here. So with the advent of Nintendo's E3, the announcement of the Zelda U game, and a really good look at Hyrule Warriors, well first of all, I'm terribly excited for both games. But after watching these, it gave me pause and it made me think about something that, honestly, I think I could only share with you guys here, because if I made this public on YouTube, I'm sure I would get publicly lynched. In that, I just don't like 3D Zelda games. I just really don't like them. That being said, though, I absolutely adore top-down 2D Zelda games. I'm sure a lot of you are wondering why in the world I'm being so callous, and how dare I say that some of the greatest games ever made were bad. Oh, first of all, I don't want to say these are bad. They're not bad games. They're just games I really don't like, and I kind of want to explain why, because a lot of people on YouTube have heard that I'm not a big fan of 3D Zelda games. In fact, I did an entire video talking about all of the Zelda games up to now and my relationship I had with each individual game. But I always had qualifiers. I always said the good and the bad together, and I didn't feel like I could be 100% complete honest about what I thought about the 3D Zelda games. But I want everyone to keep in mind that I personally don't think they're bad games or bad stories. They're just games I really don't like. And I've got three big reasons why. One is the lack of or wrongfully focused combat. In terms of having not enough combat, Ocarina of Time, in my opinion, is a big perpetrator of this. But more specifically when you're Adult Link than Kid Link, because when you're Kid Link and you're in Hyrule Field, the one place that's like the hub of all of the different branch-off locations that you're going to. When night falls, you've got tons and tons of skeletons to fight, you have to worry about the peat hats, there's a little bit more to do, but when you're Adult Link, there's nothing out there. Maybe the pose from time to time when you're horseback riding trying to collect your spirits, but Hyrule Field is so freaking empty. There's no consistent excitement going on. It literally is just going from one place to another, and in retrospect, taking off the nostalgia goggles, I don't really like that. Comparatively, Majora's Mask had more. Termina Field definitely had more enemies to fight and more to interact with, but even then, I didn't feel like there was quite enough. And then, for a lot of these Zelda games that I've played, at least 3D Zelda games that I've played, you'll go from brief moments of really exciting fighting, really fun, exciting fighting, to boring, time-consuming, tedious, block-pushing puzzles and trial-and-error puzzles, and I hate that. For me, the number one most important thing about the game is its pace. If the game is poorly paced, 9 times out of 10, I'm just not going to enjoy it. The second point is either, it's kind of both depending on the games. It has very, very unintuitive or overintuitive nature. In the case of underintuitive nature when it comes to the 3D Zelda games, to me, a good example comes from Twilight Princess when you're supposed to get that volcano rock to unfreeze all of the Zoras. Maybe I'm just an idiot. I am completely open to that, but it took me a walkthrough to figure out where to go next and what to do next. When it came to the multiple puzzles before getting the Master Sword in Twilight Princess, I just got a walkthrough because I don't know. Maybe I'm dumb, maybe I'm impatient, but it was the Lost Woods puzzle, essentially, and then it was another movement puzzle back to back. And this is right after you get done with the Water Temple in Twilight Princess. And that temple blows! I don't care who you are. That temple is wretched. It took hours of not only just trying to do it myself, but using a walkthrough to figure out what the heck I'm supposed to do. And then the boss took like 4 or 5 attempts until I figured out the right combination of using your hook shot and sinking. It just drove me insane, and I almost just quit the game there. But, I got the Master Sword, and I was ready to keep going. But that's the unintuitive nature the unintuitive nature problem that I have with these Zelda games. I admit maybe I'm just stupid, but it's not fun for me, and it's not fun for a lot of people. And then for the over-intuitive nature, this is more speaking along the lines of Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time, and Skyward Sword, where literally, I experimented with this. I could not get an Ocarina of Time from the end of one objective to the next objective in the story, like, just beelining, not even waiting, not even fighting, just beelining it right to the next location. I could not get there without Navi pestering me. And even though that's kind of a small thing, and yes, I understand you can just ignore her and listen to her saying, hey, listen, hey, listen. Or, in the case of Tattle, that constant ringing sound. You have to give me a chance to be smart enough to get from point A to point B. If you don't do that, I'm going to take that as an insult to my intelligence, and it's not going to shape up well for your game. Where in the top-down Zeldas, even the more new ones, you're given relatively vague hints about where to go. Granted, Ronnie said it in a past episode when he was talking about Zelda, you still have the option of basically being told where to go next through the fortune teller, and yeah, that's fine, but that's not right in your face. In fact, you actually have to spend resources, you have to pay rubies in order to access that information, and for Link Between Worlds, you actually have to spend play coins in order to get that information, which is a far better system in my opinion, because you have to spend stuff in order to get it. It's one of the reasons that I really love the top-down Zeldas. But as far as the 3D Zeldas, I'm constantly being told what to do, and I'm so sick of it. Let me figure it out for myself. Okay, the third problem that I have is, well, it's the pacing, but more specifically how time-consuming the introduction can be. This is the reason I have not really played Skyward Sword. It took for freaking ever to get to the point where I can actually do something of worth. The tutorials were just absolutely grating for me, and it was so bad I couldn't finish it. But like I said, maybe it's just me. I don't know. But this is why I hate, the number one reason why I just can't stand Skyward Sword is how freaking long it takes to get to a point where I can do something. An old colleague of mine and myself, we would kind of joke around talking about the value of a Zelda game based upon one thing. For me, the worth of a Zelda game in terms of pacing completely depends on how long it takes to start the game to being able to cut the first patch of grass. For my colleague, it was all about how long it took to start up the game and to break your first pot. I still kind of stand by that as a good judge of how fast, or rather how good is the pacing in order to get to the point where you can actually do something. Twilight Princess also had a very, 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 very lengthy introduction. But to its credit, you got to do a little bit more. You got to do some vague combat, but the pacing wasn't great, but it was tolerable. The one good thing I will say about Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask is that it straight up dumps you right into getting things done and getting into the action. Especially Ocarina of Time, where it's literally, you go through this quick little scene with Navi, and then you start rolling around getting rupees, you go get your sword, you go get your shield, and you just start. That was great. Granted, some of the cutscenes between that point and then the next temple took quite a bit of time, and it's completely unskippable, but it's far better. Now, with all that being said, with all of that hatred that I have, and I'm sure all of the hatred that a lot of you may have hearing me badmouth some of the air quotes greatest games of all time, I will say this. I'm gonna love the heck out of Hyrule Warriors. I am going to adore that game, because I have nothing against the world of Zelda. I've got nothing against Hyrule. I've got nothing against the storylines. It's always the gameplay that I have problems with, and Hyrule Warriors basically says, screw puzzles. Here's a ton of, here are armies and armies of dudes for you to beat the crap out of. And you can do it as Link, Zelda, Impa, Midna, and like 6 to 9 other people that we haven't seen yet. Sign me up for that. Just compulsive action, compulsive combat. I freaking love it. And, in terms of the Zelda U game that's coming out, I've seen articles of Aonuma talking about, people have been requesting greater freedom of movement within the world, a greater freedom of choice, and most importantly, far less tutorials. I am very, very much hoping that this stays the case while this game gets developed. We know so very little about it based on E3, but we do know it's a thing, and Aonuma has said that he is addressing these issues, so I have super, super high hopes that this is going to be something great. I'm already excited for Hyrule Warriors. I'm really excited for what Zelda U can be. So, don't count me out as someone who hates Zelda games. I adore the top-down Zelda games. I'm going to adore Hyrule Warriors, and I'm 90% certain that I'm gonna love the new Zelda U. So, with that being said, I hope you guys don't lynch me. I hope you guys don't spread terrible rumors about me in retaliation. That stuff has happened before based on my opinions. But, until next time, thank you guys for your patronage. Thank you for your constant support. You're really making the show go places. And until next time, this is Gaijin Goomba, signing out.